Okay, so now we are going to look in some detail at various different companies who have engaged in transformation and innovation and look at some of the learning lessons that come out of their experiences. And what I'd like to do, gentlemen, I have KC next to me, and this is the Sunshine Band. So each of you are going to play a very important role in this band. I'm going to ask each of you if you could just kick off by talking a little bit about the bits of the business that play, your bits of the business, and what sort of role they play in promoting digital transformation within the companies that you work for, so or supporting in James's case. So, KC, do you want to kick off?
Sure. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So I'm KC, I'm part of UnitedHealth Group. I lead an innovation program inside that's focused on corporate entrepreneurship. So we take the thousands of ideas that exist throughout the 130,000 employees that we have across the globe, and we look for ones that potentially have new business opportunity behind them that are largely in the digital and technology space. And then we apply very startup-based methods, such as lean startup, customer development, all of those things, to create MVPs, to experiment fast and agilely in the market, to really validate that either they have commercial business opportunity or they don't. So we run basically a portfolio of these various ideas in various states. Currently, I think we have about 15 or so ideas, and they're constantly revolving. As we close them down, we take new ones in, et cetera.
What's the sort of time horizon for a project to run through your garage?
We're kind of basically the friends and family round, I would say. So we're very early stage, very seed stage. So generally in the, a lot of times we close them down within the first few months because part of our process is getting out of the building and talking to people. We realize that there's not much opportunity there. We can close them down very quickly, but once we move into building MVPs and actually testing a product, acquiring customers and those things, the tail tends to get a little bit longer, generally probably from 1 to 2 years, I would say, before either they're ready to sort of graduate out of the garage and become a funded startup or integrated into the businesses or something entirely else.
Great, thank you. Phil, Edmunds.
Well, if you're not familiar with Edmunds, it's actually a 50-year-old print publishing business that undertook its first digital transformation in the early days of the web by putting all of their vehicle pricing guides online for free. Today, the company is growing and profitable and has 19 million unique visitors every month that come to the site and shop and research cars. That said, our company's modern day mission is to make car buying easy. And most of you buying a car out there would probably say that today it is not easy, and it's fraught with lack of transparency and lack of trust. And so we know that's going to change, like Pete talked about in the last session. We know change is coming, we just don't exactly know what it is and when. And there's a lot of institutional things that get in the way of that. So we invest, in Edmunds, we invest a lot of time and resources into innovation pipelines on trying to discover what things have stickiness with both consumers and dealers. And in my role, I focus less on what's going through the pipeline, but actually building the pipeline and sourcing the pipeline. And just to give you an example, so it's more of the where and the how versus the what. And to give you an example, it's not just things that come that are generated internally. We look outside of our walls. And one of the ways we started doing that several years ago was to take all of our data sets that we have, our proprietary vehicle data, and make everything available for free online via APIs so that developers and other companies could build automotive products with our data. And since that, through that experience, and since we started that, we've had over 8,000 developers, hundreds of applications developed, and we're able to stay very close to what's happening, not just with the big players like the eBays and Toyotas using our data, but the very small startups. And so one of the things we started as a result of seeing all of these startups use our data was an annual competition. It's actually happening next week. It's called Hackamotive. We host it in our offices, and we bring automotive startups from all over the country, and they compete for over 3 days using our iterative design processes to get cash infusion and for the ability to participate in our accelerator later in the year. And so we've been able to stay very close to what's happening, even though we're considered a more established player in the automotive research landscape.
And you give like cash prizes, vast cash prizes to attract these people?
Yeah, like first prize is $20,000. So
I'm in. Next week, you said, right? I'll be there. Great, thank you. John.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Rogers. I run something called the Corelogic Innovation Labs. If you haven't heard of Corelogic, we basically are an information service and analytics company. We hold about 99.9% of all residential property information in the United States. So we support the finance sector, the real estate sector that we've talked a lot about today, and the insurance sector. So we've grown a lot through acquisition over the last few years, and we have a multitude of products, systems, solutions. We just have hundreds of them. For the future for Corelogic, we're trying to provide one ubiquitous platform for all our clients, and we have tens of thousands of clients. And with our partnership with Pivotal here, we basically want to build more compelling solutions through the use of Pivotal Labs, which is their software capability, big data suite, and something called Cloud Foundry, which is a platform as a service. But we want to leverage their capabilities to help Corelogic improve our service for our clients.
And do you take ideas in from the outside as well as the inside, or are they all internally sort of
both.
generated?
So
very, you have a hacker motive kind of...
Yeah, very heavily focused with the clients. We obviously have lots of ideas. It's similar to KC here. We want to fail fast, so we go through a process very quickly using some of Pivotal's agile techniques to get to market fast, but understand the market, get the feedback loop in, and either improve or stop.
Got it.
It's proved pretty successful in 2014.
Well, I'll ask you in a minute to give us some examples, but let's hear from Pivotal. So how do you, James, support companies like Corelogic in there?
Yeah, sure. So Pivotal is a software company, and we build technologies that make it easier to do digital transformation, like if you want to think of it in the simplest sense. And so I'm responsible for our cloud platform team, and we've got development frameworks as well as a cloud runtime manager we call Cloud Foundry. And the nice thing about Cloud Foundry is, as opposed to having all these IT processes before where you're like, hey, we need to update this code, we need to install an operating system, we've completely inverted that whole paradigm. And so what we do is we say, just give us the code, tell us at what scale you want it to run it and what version that is, and then tell us when you want to update it. And what it allows is we've really been popular in the Fortune 500, people that weren't Twitter or Facebook and had a lot of this digital platform expertise. We've helped them arbitrage their skills gap by just walking in and saying, here's a platform, help go deliver it. So what we've done with Corelogic, I believe that's going to be very successful, is we've brought in our agile development capability to show them how to continuously deliver software. We're literally partnering with them. We pair program, one of them, one of us. And then we have this platform that makes it all kind of very liquid for them to deliver those new digital capabilities without having to change how they do IT. So we can walk in, give you that out-of-the-box experience in an hour or so, and we've been very popular in the Fortune 500 with that.
And so perhaps, John, you could talk to, and give us an example of something that's come out of this sort of cooperation that you've got here, or co-innovation, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So we launched a product called CondoSafe. So basically,
CondoSafe.
CondoSafe, yeah. So that's an industry-first product, and it basically collects condominium data. So that's about 8% of the mortgage market in the USA, and it allows investors and lenders to manage the health and risk of their investments. We built that solution in 4 months, and that would have been unheard of maybe in a previous year within Corelogic. And it was just a very tight loop with our clients to basically build out something called a minimum viable product, get to market as fast as possible, learn from it. And it's been very successful with some of the major financial institutions. So in pairing up with Pivotal, we learnt the skills, got to a good product, and got to market.
And I'm not terribly familiar with your industry space, but I mean, is there a lot of sort of innovation going on from your competitors, and what kind of models do they use relative to you? Is there sort of, or are there entrants who are coming in who are scraping data from all over?
Yes, I mean, there's it's obviously a big data analytics space. We have lots of valuation models, risk models, which have lots of IP around it.
A lot of models. Okay.
But in saying that, we actually want to use some of the big data suite technologies out there to provide further predictive analytics to the marketplace to basically leapfrog our competitors.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Phil, out of Hackermotive, or the other sort of innovation labs that you've got in there going on in there, what kind of products have sort of stood out so far from your process?
Yeah, well, they definitely address the business value in addition to engagement. It's really interesting in talking to a lot of these startups. When I ask them, well, what is your business model? And the response I hear way too often is, we're really focusing on customer acquisition right now, and then once we have that, we're going to monetize the heck out of it. And I can tell you, having 19 million visitors, we have the traffic, and it ain't that easy to monetize. What we focus on, for instance, coming out of Hackermotive, is what are the teams that have the best ideas that also have some form of viable business model, and we invite them to come in for 3 months and participate in an accelerator where we not only expose them to all of our traffic and allow them to run experiments, but we take them through our product development life cycles, have them do usability training. We'll look at behavioral economics of how people respond to their product. And actually the winner of last year's Hackermotive event, it's a startup called Carcode, and it's a texting platform between consumers and dealers that the consumers can control, and it's in their native texting interface. And we had them go through our accelerator, and what we saw importantly was not only that the consumers were preferring to text over email or calling dealers, but that the dealers were really sticky with the product as well, and were willing to use it, even pay for it. And so after really seeing kind of an untapped job that was being done, we bought the company and have integrated them into our platform, and have thousands of dealers signed up in just a couple of months, and have many tens of thousands of text messages happening every day and every week that are already going through this platform. And it's barely out of MVP mode, but it's something that's really catching on.
Interesting. And you mentioned earlier on, you sort of say, a lot of these startups, they look for sort of vast numbers of users before they start trying to monetize. I mean, in Silicon Valley, we call that the URL strategy. Ubiquity first, revenue later, right? Yeah. And it's actually, some of the most disruptive models actually do that. It's like, just go and get as many people, get that network effect going, drive for, don't worry about revenue, it'll come. Do you think you might miss something?
It's possible. We've all been seduced by that adoption and engagement paradigm, where if you just have that, then everything else takes care of itself. But our internal product folks have had their spirit crushed so many times when their idea they thought was going to be the one, just nobody wanted. Nobody wanted to use. So it's possible. We ran an experiment just in the last week, and it's, what if we didn't have any advertising on our site? 60% of our revenue comes from display advertising. What if no ads were on our site?
Hey, that sounds like newspapers.
There you go.
That's great.
Touché.
Be a newspaper. Right.
But engagement went up. It went up by 30%, and some other key metrics went up. But that 30% doesn't replace the revenue that it takes away. But what it does is it makes us, for the folks with inertia or conventional wisdom around how to monetize our business, it gives us a different way of thinking. We've now had the axis tilted a little bit on us, and we have to rethink what are the opportunities in our business.
Very interesting. So, Casey, what have you driven out of the garage successfully to follow on from Edmunds in your projects?
We have a number of ones that are currently in market. We have a couple that are in the food and nutrition space. So as part of people's overall health and well-being, food and what we consume, what we put in our bodies is such an important piece. Being a more traditional healthcare company, we don't actually own any companies that are involved at any point in the supply chain. Historically, we've just generally said, you need to eat better and watch what you eat, and it's more prescriptive, right? And we have a couple that are sort of taking new takes on, for example, vending that you find where the majority of us spend most of our time is in our offices. And the food choices that we have in there, outside of on-site cafeterias, which can offer some healthier options. There's a lot of, the vending industry is huge, and most of those are filled with chips, candy, sodas, and then what I would call sort of gas station sandwiches, which aren't that great tasting. So we've got a business that we've started that we're putting smarter technology in the vending themselves to make the transaction easier, but then also we could then integrate that data with wellness platforms that are inside the employers as well to reward people and incent them to eat better. And then we're partnering with local food suppliers and producers so that the items offered in are more artisan, more wholesome, that actually taste good. It's not really diet food, but it's good for you food. So that's one of the things that we have.
And the money making out of this is what? Is it sort of getting healthier people so there are less claims and all that kind of, so there's benefit from the insurer side, or is there sort of you make money out of these vending machines and the stuff?
Right. It's a little bit of both. On the prior, the tail on actually proving and showing that outcome is very, very long. I mean, that's one of the challenges with healthcare is showing an actual improvement to outcomes is very difficult to do and takes a very long time. So as part of our process, we're looking at monetizing these opportunities, and right now we're taking margin off of the food that's inside, as well as exploring. So a lot of employers, especially larger ones, subsidize healthier options for their employees because it's been shown to correlate to sort of less costly treatments down the road.
Got it. And has anything else come out of the garage?
Well, we have a number of different things. Yeah, we've got a veterinary telemedicine platform. This one's a little bit awkward and adjacently outside the core of our businesses. Veterinary.
I guess,
but
we're all animals.
An idea that we have assets that we could help improve a market that's even further behind in terms of technology adoption, largely run by small mom-and-pop businesses that don't have access to these great digital tools. We also have a number of ones in data and analytics. So UnitedHealth Group, we have claims data for the last however many years on about 100 million lives in the United States. Very, very rich sources of data that we're looking at building analytics platforms and things for other companies and ones that are sort of adjacent to our core that we typically don't provide to. Access to that type of data as well. Things like CPG, agencies, life sciences, those types of things.
I see a mashup data opportunity here. I see health, driving, and I see real estate. So we can, the three of us just sit down, four of us sit down afterwards, we'll mash it all up and we'll come up with a great new product, which James will help us get to market really fast through his platform.
Sounds good for me.
So you've been working with a lot of companies, James. So can you give us a couple of examples of where clients that you've worked with have sort of, in terms of digital transformation, what you've done with them has accelerated dramatically the outcomes?
I think it's worth looking at the market that we're in, which is enterprise infrastructure. For maybe about 10 years was pretty stagnant, right? There haven't been a lot of startups in enterprise infrastructure. Oracle and IBM really dominated it for a while. And the reason is that people were shipping software infrequently, and they were writing it in heavyweight ways. So none of these convenient scale-out, cloud-native kind of capabilities were important to the buying criteria. It was much more about the value chain of integrators who were already preferring it, and if Accenture used it. And if it happened to take 3 weeks to start the app and to get it in production, no one cared because it was a 9-month cycle on the deal. And what we've seen is when we first came out, it was sort of this radical thesis. We started using the software's eating the world mantra. We started talking about the level of disruption. I show a chart from John Chambers that says of the traditional vendors in IT, HP, down Microsoft, Oracle, et cetera, they all stopped growing in 2011. Every single one of them. They hit to the red. And the reason is that this kind of cloud native transformation was happening, and people were looking to deliver apps and capability faster because they were suddenly in an evolutionary arms race. And that was the thesis when we started the investment behind this. And it was kind of crazy the first time I made that deck, and I got up in front of the federal government and said things like this, right? Like that sounded insane. But now we see by and large it's happening. So a couple examples. Insurance companies from Humana, who's similar to UnitedHealth, they're a very large transformational project. In the same way with Corelogic, we built a transformation lab with them in Louisville, Kentucky. And what they've done is they've remodeled the first floor of their entire skyscraper in Louisville, 30 stories or something, to be an agile development and new software lab. And they wanted to show their clients that they were here to transform as well. Like it's almost become so much part of the zeitgeist, you have to have that. And they're doing things similar to your innovation lab. The one other area to highlight is that insurance in general is going crazy right now because Google just got into offering insurance direct. Like you don't even have to go to your agent, you can just get it from Google. And so 3 out of 3 of the top largest insurance companies in the United States are all pivotal clients now. And it's great over drinks with them to say, like, what happens when there's only self-driving cars? Like, what's your business? Because they can look out 10 years and see, you're at Allstate, who's a big customer of ours. They'll be speaking at our summit. What happens in 10 years when no one needs auto insurance? And how do you compete with all of these automated experiences? So it's an interesting time for us to be in the infrastructure space.
Got it. And we've talked a bit about the sort of structures that you have and the approaches. Can we touch on the subject of leadership? And several times today, the sort of message has come through. If you really want to have a rapid digital transformation, you need support from the top. In each of your cases, I don't know who wants to take this first, but what kind of support structure do you have for the labs or the garages that you're running? Who wants to go first?
I'll start if you want, yeah.
Okay.
That was key for Corelogic, so I've got board approval. So we spent the last year with all the business unit leads, product management, sales, HR, vendor management, legal. My job is to bring the company along and buy into labs. And that just takes obviously a lot of work, but they see the benefit when they see what we're doing, what we're producing, the products that we take to market. Definitely takes a lot of effort. I mean, obviously the technology division, we're a pretty widely dispersed company because we grew by acquisition. So when they hear about things like innovation labs and Pivotal, they think, first of all, outsourcing, we're going to replace all the systems. But it's not that. We want to harness our data, we want to harness our systems and become better at producing products. So my job is to bring the company along with us. The board approves of it, which is the big stamp of approval. So it's not like an IT initiative going in sideways.
Well, I think we have an interesting situation. We're a private company, but the chairman of our company would be the one who would say, run a site with no ads. Our CEO would say, back up. But I think the key for us has been developing this discipline. I talked about it in a pipeline, but we actually call it a pyramid. We're using shapes and geometry here, but we use a pyramid to move projects through their life cycle at Edmunds. So we start at the top with accelerate projects, and these are the most experimental, untested ideas, and these can come from all parts of the company. So when you asked about how do you not miss something that's transformational, we don't try and crush everything or have a top-down approach. We open up anybody to make a proposal into the accelerator, and we give them very limited resources and constraints. So you can have 3 people and 3 months, and you'll have board oversight where you will report monthly on what you're learning. And at this point, we force people to focus on learning and not on building, because it's so typical people want to just start building a prototype or an MVP, and without even really giving much critical thought. They have an idea and they want to see it online. So people get very creative when you give them those kinds of constraints, and they build trapdoors, products that don't exist, but gauge engagement, and if they just click on a button. And so the things that actually materialize from that, we give more resources, and they go further in the pyramid to the grow phase, where they become a part of our portfolio, and we give them an opportunity to become a line of business or a new consumer experience. And then, then there's what you call the cash cow, or part of our business, the things that are well established in our company that go into the sustaining mode and optimization mode. And I think the business has become more comfortable with that and the leadership ownership, because it improves our hit ratio overall. Meaning, we just allowing people to do whatever they wanted and not putting constraints around it. Our success ratio was very low as far as innovation goes. This is much more targeted and successful.
Great. Casey?
Yeah, we've made some changes a number of years ago to instill more of an innovation culture inside the company. Being such a large company, that was a considerable effort, of which our CEO and all the executive support. So that's been a very good thing. And what's come out of that is we have champions now, folks inside of all the businesses who have sort of the title and role of an innovation champion, meaning as ideas sort of filter, what they act as natural funnel points for folks who have ideas that may not fit their particular job or even or business group or department that they're in, a place where they can take ideas to. And then those champions can funnel towards, for lack of better words, a central council, which then can review ideas coming from across the business on a monthly basis, and then several are chosen to sort of pitch in front of a executive steering committee, who then chooses to fund those ideas. And the people who have the ideas can spend their time. Basically, the funding goes to support their time working on it. What we've realized, and one of the reasons that the garage exists, is that wasn't quite enough, is just giving them some funding and letting them go. And similar to your story, Phil, is we need to have a place where they can go that gives them the tools, process, and methods so that you're working towards learning as fast as possible. And again, what we saw the same thing is everyone just wanted to build something, and then it was, well, we built this awesome thing, and now we just hope people will use it, which is really the case. And so.
So if I were to pop up in your radar screen and say, hey, I think we should do animals, veterinary stuff, and everyone's, what? You're mad, psychiatrist office is that way. Is there someone right at the top who says, actually, is it the CEO? Is it that big board of executive directors who says, no, actually, you know what? Let's hear that out. Or is it you? Do you make that case?
That one was me.
Congratulations, the psychiatrist office.
Right. It's part of the process of which they support. So we don't want to, bring ideas at that early stage to such a high level. And so what we've done is said, hey, we're going to establish this process that does this early sort of diligence to weed out the really dumb ideas from the good ones quickly and for very little investment.
Got it.
And from there we let the market sort of tell us where those things go by getting them out quickly and learning. Again, learning is the most important measure.
Right, the feedback loops. Great. Can I get the microphones out? Questions, one down here to start with.
Joe Pucciarelli from IDC. A question for Phil. So Phil, I personally keep track of some of the things going on in your space, and it seemed like you guys were a well-established player, and then all of a sudden it looks like, as somebody who's ill-informed to me, it looks like you're being disrupted a little bit by a new entrant, TrueCar.com. Could you just talk about that a little bit, and what are some of the competitive dynamics when an innovator starts getting disrupted, or at least to me appears to be getting disrupted?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. TrueCar has built a really good business and recently gone public. There's a major distinction between us and how both our business models and in what our consumer offering is. And just to go into it lightly, we focus on the overall research and shopping experience. TrueCar provides a price, and they allow you to configure a price for a car that doesn't exist. So it's a theoretical savings on a vehicle. And what we've focused on is building out our data platform so that we can offer pricing on actual inventory that sits on a dealer's website. As far as the disruption goes, I would say it's not very disruptive. And what we're doing is not very disruptive. TrueCar's traffic went down for the first time last month. And so there's some topping out of that business model that we're starting to see.
So when you say that's not disruptive and what you're doing is not disruptive, does that mean neither of you are doing a good job?
Yeah, to be totally honest.
What should we be doing? What should you be doing?
Well, listen, this is a really tough space. When you think about the automotive retail industry, it is governed by...
but you can make it suck less, right?
Franchise laws in 48 states that say you have to buy a car from a dealer.
Right.
And so dealers need to have a proper incentive. And one of the major differences that we've found is that TrueCar has been antagonizing dealers. They've been were sued out of existence by dealers. And now there's another class action. Whether that goes, I don't know. What we found is, and I would use the car code example, where we're enabling this platform where consumers can exchange information at their convenience on their terms, where we're trying, and the dealers actually value it because they're getting real contact with consumers, is that we want to provide something that's sticky on both sides and bring the dealers into the conversation, because otherwise they're just going to put up a wall and they can continue to be obstinate to change because they don't need to. And so how can we bring things that are incrementally better and change that marketplace?
Great question. Thank you very much. Other questions from the floor? One down here. We'll get the... Here it comes.
This question is also for Phil.
TrueCar?
Stop the radio
ads.
ads.
A similar question, but a little bit different. So as we see companies now like Tesla being more prevalent, Tesla's had a great example for something that a lot of people thought couldn't be done. Before them was, of course, Fisker. But how do you see, I guess, Edmunds fitting in with this concept where Tesla is selling cars kind of around the dealership model, right? So, I mean, you can go on Tesla's website and buy a car directly, right? So how do you see Edmunds fitting in with something like that moving forward?
Yeah, that remains to be seen. It's the question we get asked a lot by analysts who cover Tesla. Electric cars, as awesome as they are, I love electric cars, have a very small part in the marketplace, and Tesla specifically. Where I think Tesla has a great opportunity is less in retail and more in the licensing of their technology to the rest of the manufacturers who are having a much more difficult time trying to move into that space. They went open source. Yeah, well, hey, and you know what? They'll say that they went open source because they still feel like they can do it better than everybody else. They're not challenged by it.
And when self-driving cars come, you've got a whole nother set of things to deal with. Okay, other questions? One down here.
Just real quick.
It's arriving. There we go.
And it's for Casey. You mentioned, I'm Kelly, I'm with UPS. We have a very large organization as well, and we struggle with that innovation idea, getting up to where it needs to be. Exactly what you were suggesting. Things get squashed or, I guess just ridiculed. So curious if you could elaborate just on that innovation champion that you have.
Sure.
It sounds like it's interesting.
Yeah, so the champions are fairly senior leaders throughout, and sort of they represent all of the main business units throughout the company.